What Trump is doing makes a hell of a lot of sense. You don't have to like it. You could hate it. You could love it. But this idea that he's nuts or is completely crazy makes you crazy because you're not paying attention. Let me explain. There's two things going on. The first is strategic, and the other is ideological, and the two play into each other. Let's start with the strategy. Doge, cost cutting. The bottom line is the United States owes $36 trillion in debt. And the interest payments on this debt is more expensive than what we spend on the military. $900 billion that we need to pay, just like the minimum balance on your credit card. So something has to get done about this. So Doge, Elon's commando units, his musketeers, are given open access to go in there, scrape up all the information, find waste, fraud, and abuse. Those are the buzzwords. Fire tons of people to save cashola, and ostensibly reorganize these departments with that cost cutting in mind. Okay, makes sense, right? We're up to our asses in debt, so cut the budget so we can pay off our debt. Now, where the ideology comes into that strategy is look at what is being cut. USAID, foreign aid. Now, once again, it's not about it's good or bad. I'm just illustrating the mentality here and how strategy and ideology are locked together. First thing that gets cut is foreign aid programs, the park services, the IRS. Why? Well, that fits the ideology, which is MAGA to the core. Like, fuck the IRS for taking our money. Fuck foreign aid. Why should we help other countries? And the list goes on and on. How did they prioritize the cost cutting? Bill Maher, last night, was smart about this in his rant at the end of the show, New Rules. And what he pointed out, which is totally on point, is that the cost cutting isn't really hitting the Pentagon. We need to reorganize how we fight wars. Look what happened in Ukraine. Drones, baby, drones. It's all robots. So why are we spending hundreds of billions of dollars, let's say, on an antiquated jet fighter program, manned jet fighter, when drones took out the Russian fleet in the Black Sea? Unmanned drones sank the Russian Navy. Unmanned drones are basically waging war across the 2,000-kilometer front between Russia and Ukraine. So Bill asks reasonable questions, which is like, if you're so gung-ho on chainsawing through the federal government, then why are you not focused on obvious cost reductions in our U.S. military? Like, we've got all these bases all over the world. Why? And the answer is, it's the ideology part, because it'll come across as showing weakness. And we don't want to cut the military, really. The military is America's greatness. So they don't prioritize that way. And now let's look at foreign policy, which is freaking the hell out of a lot of people. And again, thinking that Trump is crazy. He's not. It's strategy and ideology. What about this renormalization of our relationship with Russia? Why are we throwing NATO and the EU and Ukraine under the bus and fist pumping with Vladimir and supporting tyrants like Orban in Hungary? Well, once again, strategy and ideology. The strategy is, what benefit is it for us to support Ukraine when we could buddy up with Russia? They're basically a huge gas station with nuclear weapons, but they're expansive, they're influential throughout the world, and we've got Europe anyway. They're not going anywhere, and screw NATO. If we're friends with Russia, what's the point of NATO? Why even bother? And if Russia reinvades Ukraine or eats up Estonia or Latvia, or even invades Poland for that matter, so what? And where the ideology is really strong is the most unwoke people on the planet are Putin in Russia and Orban in Hungary. You see what's going on here? It's strategic advantage. We're going to buddy up with the big guys against China, against Iran. We're going to unilaterally support Israel, throw the Palestinians under the bus too, because it's all about raw power. If you look at it like a monopoly board or a risk board, if we buddy up with Russia against these big adversaries and pretty much fuck our friends, because these alliances really don't benefit us that much, and for bonus brownie MAGA points, we buddy up with the most unwoke of the crowd, like Orban in Hungary, then we're killing two birds. It's make America great again in terms of raw global power and influence, and make America great again in terms of the value system that is MAGA, which is fuck this liberal democracy bullshit. Let's enhance the power of the unitary executive, and fuck it, authoritarianism. What's wrong with that? The woke crowd led to this mess of the open borders and inflation and all this shit. And we could just consolidate our power internationally and do it through the lens of embracing authoritarian ideology, which is cool. It's anti-liberal. And to me, that explains the whole Trump stuff. It's very coherent. It's make America great again 2.0 with the boundaries taken off. The guardrails are off. And fighting the judiciary, same thing. Fuck the judges. It's the power of the president seen as like a king. And it's all justified, in air quotes, by him winning the popular vote, winning all the swing states. It was a relatively narrow margin, but he won. So let's fuck it. All what the fuck? It's like, damn the torpedoes and full speed ahead with all of this stuff. I'm not necessarily agreeing with any of it, but when everyone is so outraged and they don't see a coherent strategy and how all this is coming together, then I'm like, come on, pay attention. What might be confusing, though, is how they're doing it. They're doing it so haphazardly and so recklessly and so suddenly that it's creating confusion, especially with the tariffs, which, if you ask me, are backfiring. But Trump doesn't even give a shit about that. Why? Because he loves to initiate this shit. He loves to say something and make it happen without anyone getting in his way. And as president, he's able to do that with tariff. Trump just says 10%, 25%, steel, aluminum, melons, fucking whatever, dildos. And it happens. So the ultimate expression of the unitary executive and unmitigated power is issuing tariffs. He loves that shit, so that makes sense too. Anyway, you're welcome.